Hello, all. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. A warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us here at Rainbow Secure Cyber Symposium 2022. Thanks to our event sponsors, Step Up Skills, Akashvani, CyberEdX, Pre-Save Technologies, Technology and Marketing Ventures, and community partners BBWIC. As you are well aware, the event is scheduled on every Saturday of October. The topics for the symposium are application security, identity, data security, ransomware, and data privacy. This year, we have speaker session and panel discussions on current cyber threats, cyber news, best practices, and innovations. Everything that can help businesses do business securely. We had an amazing and insightful session on October 8th with highly experienced and versatile industry leaders who humbly shared their real life stories, lessons, and learning they had from them. Last year, we had great success with 60 plus industry speakers and technology visionaries gracing our event and helping us spread knowledge and cyber awareness. I once again thank you all for joining us here. Now, I would like to take this opportunity of welcoming our president, Nehal Mehta. Nehal is a visionary and passion for cybersecurity has inspired her to bring about innovative world class security solutions which are robust and user friendly. She has graduated with BS degrees in maths, stats, and economics, BCA in computer science, master's MPA in masters in performing arts, diploma in Indian classical dance. Her versatility, simplicity, and creativity has enabled Rainbow Secure great laurels and accolades and a lot more in store for future. With a huge round of applause, I welcome Neil.
Thank you, Shashi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope you all are having wonderful Saturday. I'm Nehal Mehta, President and co-founder of Rainbow Secure. Warm welcome to our honorable panelists and amazing audience. It's pleasure to have you here at Rainbow Secure Cyber Symposium 2022. Thank you for joining on October 1, October 8, and today. For our panel discussion, Rainbow Secure has a vision to make security practices easy to follow, fun like game, and be like a sealed bulletproof glass. And is on a mission to give a small and medium and enterprise business to a security solution and services as per their security needs, and also try to help them to comply and industry standard regulation. We have been conducting a various awareness program for industry and society in in a general, like a Rainbow Secure has pioneer in developing innovative and patented security product for IM, SSO, and multi-layer login solution to help business conduct their business safely and securely. We as inspire to work toward building a secure future, and thank you to joining us and support us. Now I would like request Sashi to please present the agenda and also introduce our panelist to we start a panel talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Nehal. So today we have a phenomenal talk for today's panel talk that is threat modeling. What is it good for? Not absolutely nothing. I would like to take this opportunity of introducing our esteemed panelist for today. Izar is a senior staff engineer with Datadog. Prior to that, he was principal security engineer at Squarespace. He has also worked as senior security architect at a leading investment institution, lead product security architect at Autodesk Inc., security architect for enterprise hybrid cloud at Dell EMC, security consultant at the EMC product security office. He is a core contributor to SafeCode and a founding contributor to IEEE Center for Security Design. He holds a master's degree in computer science security from Boston University and has served as an instructor in digital forensics at Boston University and in secure development at the University of Oregon. I would request I would take this opportunity of welcoming our next esteemed panelist for today, Matthew Calls. Matthew Calls is a senior principal product security engineer at Dell Technologies, experienced security architect, and security program leadership, defining and delivering security program processes and secure system architecture. Expertise across the product lifecycle, enabling security, privacy, and safety of complex systems with practices such as threat modeling and architecture analysis, code analysis, security testing, secure supply chain and manufacturing, and vulnerability and incident response. Strong communication skills to deliver timely and actionable information to both technical and non technical audiences. Focuses on practical security solutions founded in secure systems engineering with the goal of proactively avoiding and mitigating security risks to support business objectives. I welcome Izar and Matthew for the panel discussion. I would also take this opportunity of introducing our moderator for today, Dhaval Shah. He's the CEO of Rainbow Secure. He wears multiple hats of cybersecurity advisor, security architect, inventor, and helps in inventing GOACL, Rainbow Password, passwordless, and smart multi-factor technologies. He brings his amazing experience and technical leadership to Rainbow Secure to innovate remarkable IAM SSO platform that solves login, secure data security, and privacy pain. I would request Dhaval sir to kindly start the panel discussion for today.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sasi, for a great introduction. I'd like to invite Izar and Matthew on stage to kickstart the topic of the day.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, good morning, guys. It's great pleasure to have you here with, I would say, decades of industry experience, the knowledge, and the actual know-how that you guys have gathered, and you are sharing that with the industry and your peers. It's truly amazing, you know.
Well, we hope folks will get some good entertainment from it at the very least, learn some things, and also, of course, we do want to answer any questions that anyone has. We'll do our best.
Yes, yes.
Yep. And again, pleasure to be here with you guys. It's great to be returning to your event.
Hmm.
We look forward to it every year, and have seen some good stuff so far. So hopefully we'll be able to add to it a bit.
Sure, our audience likes it a lot. We had a lot of on-demand replays after the last event, and your talk was one of the one was having a great hits on the replays.
Eh, we
It's a fun
try.
topic.
Yeah,
It's a fun topic, and we're entertaining, I suppose. Not
Yeah,
to
we try.
well, we try. Anyway,
great. You got great.
So what are we talking about today? All of that? Okay.
well, so,
So yeah,
yes. But first off, does anyone have any leading questions? Otherwise, we can start.
right.
I guess we'll be monitoring during the chat during the presentation or
Yes.
the presentation. We'll be monitoring the Q&A in the session, or how else can people ask questions?
Yeah, I'm going to monitor the feeds and other chat so that if any questions come direct on the back end, then also I will relate to both of you. So I'm going to monitor that.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Great.
Mhm.
So let's start the topic at hand here. The session title is "What is threat modeling good for? Not absolutely nothing."
Say it again.
Uh, for bonus points, can anyone tell us where that reference came from? It's pretty ancient, so maybe not, but is there no?
If you know the reference, you get a book. You get a book. You get a book.
There
You
you
get a book.
go. That's true. I guess we'll throw in a copy of our book on threat modeling if you're interested. There you go. It's blurred out behind me, so otherwise. All right.
Oh yeah,
So
right.
we'll wait. We'll see if anyone brings that up. So basically, oh, we lost an Izar. I'll wait for him to
Yeah, I see
return.
him reconnecting. Yeah.
Yeah. So while he's connecting, so the topic for today was really understanding, or wanted to talk about. We don't. It's not a presentation. We have nothing to present. We're just gonna chat here about what threat modeling. So we've talked last year. For those who haven't seen it, you can go take a look at the presentation. Rainbow Secure conference from last season. We talked about threat modeling, how to create data flows, and how to do analysis, and we talked about some of the tools and the threat modeling manifesto and other things. And so, what we want to look at, what I want to talk about this year, is really what can you do with it. Like now that you have a threat model, what 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 do you do now, right? And so the of course the core of threat modeling is you're using it for threat analysis and or risk analysis, and you're using it to, for instance, look at a system and identify security concerns, right? That's its core value, security and or privacy, certainly, and you can use it for other things. And you're going to do that risk analysis, or that threat analysis, uh, ideally as early as possible, potentially do it multiple times during your release, and really use that as a way to drive security requirements, to understand your security posture, etc. But you can use threat modeling for other things, right? And there's a few particular topic areas that folks might consider. Um, are you back or?
I don't know what's happening here. It
Okay.
kicked me off saying that my link was being used. Okay.
Oh,
So I have some thoughts, and this is meant to be a conversation. And so I'm going to ask Izar, because Izar's
Yeah.
got a lot of experience on this, but also he's had an opportunity to see sort of the landscape out there from a lot of different perspectives. Both talking at conferences as well as some of the organizations he's been with. In your opinion, is it understood what first off, is it understood what you do with a threat model to start with? Like, what's its based on its core function? Does it make sense to folks? Does it resonate? Do people make use of it in the way it's meant to be used, which is as a design activity? And then we can start talking about other ways you can make use of it.
So here's the thing. I think that since 2018, 19, the term threat modeling has jumped up. People are much more aware to this. Oh, there is something called threat modeling out there. And then on 20, sort of 21, I don't know, it became it's something that we're supposed to do. Basically because there's been a lot of chatter around compliance and instructions coming from on high from various uh, organs and organisms and governments and whatnot. So everybody is sort of like aware that this threat modeling thing has to happen. And that led to a lot of people trying to figure out how to do it. And a lot of organizations getting to the what I call the pointy-haired step of things, where somebody jumps upon you and says, "Okay, we need a threat model. Do a threat model. It has to be brown and go for it." And I think that we are lacking a bit on the department of okay, I did this. Now what do I do with it? Right? The threat models that I have been exposed to, although many of them were amazing, beyond amazing, but a lot of them came from a feeling of, okay, we did this thing, we don't know if we did it right, we don't know if it's sufficient, and now that we have done it, can we just go on with our lives, please? So there is I think we are now in the area or the time where we look at this huge amount of information that we have amassed and these threats that we have imagined and these mitigations that we have found, and we are asking the fifth question: what do we do now?
Yeah. So that's an interesting perspective, right? So now it's become sort of this thing you have to do, and now what, right? Um, and I think that's consistent. I think with some of the experiences I've seen as well, where it's sometimes looked at as a burden, so to speak.
Mm.
But not necessarily. And then you have those who really are fans of the activity, right? Who stress the activity and make use of it. And those are the folks. Not necessarily those folks we want to focus on today, but the benefits of threat modeling go well beyond just checking a checkbox, right?
Yeah.
So in the style of this conversation, do you have any questions for me?
So yeah, I think that the first thing is we have to make a bit of a distinction here. I think that Matt and we have shared a lot of common past at the EMC and the EMC, so an organization that we know well, and at least I used to. Matt does better.
It helps if
And,
you
and
return,
yeah, and then I had some churn and seen different organizations at different scales and different times in their security journey. And I think that answering this question of threat modeling, what is it good for? It's a direct relation to those organizations that we've seen and those ways of working, because in many of these organizations there were a lot of different teams at the same time, and each team operating at a different velocity, different methodology, different philosophy. So we really got exposed to a lot of different stuff, both of us, and we try to again put that in the express that in the book. So Matt, if you had to take a moment right now and look back and answer the question, what is it good for? What do you think is the main thing that you have observed in all these different teams and environments and situations? What is it good for?
What is it good for? So I think the number one, what is it good for answer, and there's a lot. I think there's a lot of there's a definite list that and there's quite a lot of things I think we can go with here. But I think the number one, and this harkens back, I think, to some of the conversations we had around the threat modeling manifesto and what especially things, topics that some of those other folks brought up, who joined us on that effort, um, was around bringing a team together to form a common understanding of what they were working on. Right. So it's always exciting to be part of a threat modeling activity, either as a moderator or as just another pair of eyes, as a security practitioner, just, fly on the wall, even where somebody goes, well, we did X, and then the architect maybe says, oh, we spec'd out X, and then somebody else on the team, one of the developers, goes, well, we implemented Y, and there's silence. and
The
and and
Eureka moment.
and then there's some back and forth conversation until they realize what happened, and then they have a common understanding. And so the threat model itself is a driver for that conversation to occur, so that people get on the same page. And with that being on the same page, then being able to move forward more effectively in their individual roles and as an organization. So traditionally, the threat modeling is supposed to be for, well, what does my system look like, and what are my security concerns, as opposed to, have we done what we think we're doing, and do we have a common understanding of what we're actually working on. And so that, I think, that's the number one outcome of what a threat model is good for. But like I said, I think there's a lot on that list that we can dive into. There's some really interesting things that we can dive into there.
True. And
So I'm going to throw that question back to you, because you posed it to me. You can either agree and we can move on, or you may have a different perspective. But I will
so
throw that back to you.
I am going to agree that, first of all, that Eureka moment, I think it's where things become more interesting. But the important thing is that that eureka moment only happens in a point in time in the life of the system where the system already exists or already has been implemented.
Hmm.
Now,
Agreed. Yep.
the traditional approach to threat modeling says that threat modeling is better done at design time.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, we live in a world where that time has gone and passed for most everything.
Mhm.
We are asking people now to go back and look at the systems that they have already in place. So these eureka moments are they become very valuable in terms of not only understanding the system but also in explaining the system, which many times is something that companies have a problem with. A new person came into the team, and how do you get them up to speed as quick as possible, right? So you have like design documents and you have RFCs and you have this and the other one, but the natural place where all this organic documentation that exists comes together, to me, is in a threat model, because you are bringing that system to a definition, not a minimalistic definition, but a synthetic definition of this is what's actually there. This is the stuff that, forget what we imagine, forget what we design. This is what reality is, right? This is the box. So let's look at it and understand its intrinsic parts so that we can do the analysis of the things that could go wrong. But at the end of the day, you end up with a document or a set of documents that clearly represents truth, what's out there. Because if it doesn't, then your analysis is moot. You are looking at an imagination, at a dream, and not at reality. So with that said, I think that that's the second best thing that comes out of it. By way of the things that Matt said, bringing the team together and having everybody have that common vision that, yes, that's the thing that we are building, you end up with that vision of what is it that you're building. And that I
So,
think is invaluable.
so I need to ask you the hard question then.
Oh,
Do you need threat modeling to do that?
no, you need modeling to do that. Because even though we call it threat modeling, actually what we should be calling it, I think, light bulb, is
Yeah.
modeling threats, right? Because first we do the modeling and then we deal with this threat thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I'm going to bring it back to you, Matt, because to tell you the truth, you are much better at the modeling part than I am. I just like to draw stuff in whatever is in my head. But Matt has done an amazing, amazing set of work analyzing the things that are out there to what can we use to model this thing. So, Matt, tell us a bit about modeling, about the difficulties of modeling
Oh
something.
my God. Well, how much time do we have?
Not at
So I'll harken back to last year. Actually, you know what? It wasn't last year because we didn't have that in the presentation last year. But if you catch our DEF CON talk, it's there instead. I put together a list of 10 ways you can model a system and demonstrated 3 of them as being functionally equivalent. And that's just scratching the surface, right? So this is where it gets exciting, I guess. Not exciting. Well, okay, exciting for some people. um,
We
right,
like it.
and so the core of modeling, right, is really, first off, we're building models. Models are representations; they are not the system. But we need enough detail to be able to make an analysis, right? And I know this is going to run afoul of a couple of folks, especially some of our friends and colleagues in the threat modeling world, around how much effort you put into creating or getting together the information that you would then, you know, effectively perform analysis on, right? If you're doing threat modeling, you're going to model a system and then you're going to use that information to generate threats. You sort of could skip the modeling step and just have a conversation, but then you really are doing modeling in your head, right? And that's actually one of the modeling types we don't talk about because, well, it's implied, right? We do it sort of, and the example that is or used in when we wrote our book was, you're crossing the street and you're looking both ways for cars, and you make a risk decision, right? And effectively we're doing a system model in our head, and then that has data characteristics that we then make some analysis about. But we don't talk about that much, and that's a really key fundamental part, right? That you can do that. The problem is many of the systems we work on are just so darn complex that keeping all those details in your head, unless you have an eidetic memory or photographic memory, or I imagine IQ of 150 or better, and Sheldon Cooper style. Um, if anyone knows where that reference came from, well, we won't give a book, but let's get some audience
Bazinga!
participation going here. Um, so the systems we work on are just so complex that it's hard for any one person. And as we saw with the Eureka moment, our mental understandings of the system may be different. And so that's why we put things down on paper or on a whiteboard or into code, right? So we do modeling as code now. I guess we do modeling as code, right? We have tools for that. And there are tools that exist in the industry today. They've actually existed for decades, right? Organizations across especially defense and some of the regulated industries have had code-based modeling, model-based systems engineering, and other practices for decades now. So this is not new. We're just applying it to a different process, right? And so it's there's just so much complexity. You have to write stuff down, and you have to have that common understanding so you can make the analysis. And you can do that by drawing, you can do that by coding, you can do that by creating a diagram in a program. You can do that by creating a diagram in a program that then knows how to automate the analysis of that, right? And so there's all those different ways of doing things, and really you just have to choose the one that works for you, right? And you're going to have you're going to do a cost benefit analysis there, literally, right? Do I want to
Yeah.
spend a lot of money for a tool, right? Do I want to buy a Visio license versus using Paint or something open source, right? And so no pitches here, not making any any endorsements by any of the products we mentioned, but just it's the realities of business, right? If you're a single security consultant working on a project, you may use an open source tool to do a drawing and then do all the analysis by hand. Or if you're a large organization, you can go out and buy a commercial tool that can assist you, right? And effectively, tool assisted threat modeling is wonderful. If you can afford it, you want to use it, it works for your organization. So Izar, I don't know if that covers all of the question you asked. I know I think your Wi-Fi is cutting in and out. I saw your network. No,
Yeah, he's
okay,
back. He's back.
he's back.
It's amazing. Years and years of technology, and I can't get this right. Okay.
And you switched to Linux and everything.
Yeah. Probably my router. Anyway.
So I hope I answered at least the part of the question, and folks got a good understanding of that. But what else did you want to cover in that topic?
While I was out, did you plug in PyTM?
I didn't.
Plug in PyTM.
I wanted to avoid the product endorsements, but we'll
It's
plug.
not a product. We don't take money for it.
So for those who don't know, Izar and I maintain a open source project called PyTM, which does threat modeling as code. So you write code and you get threats out of it, and diagrams. So you can do modeling without actually doing the threat analysis if you want. You can just create the diagram in code. And since, again, I don't want to do any endorsements, you can do the same thing in Plant UML or GraphViz, or you can. Sorry, what?
But PyTM is cooler.
PyTM is cooler, yes. And there's other tools that will do that similarly as well. And the market is starting to warm up to that as the way that we do threat modeling. It's certainly and it certainly works well in a DevOps environment, right? So if you want to do some CI/CD with threat modeling,
yep,
people don't usually put those together, but here you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things that I wanted to go back to what you just said was that the defense establishment and industry and stuff like that, they've been doing this modeling thing using formal languages for a long time. Mm-hmm. I think that SysML comes to mind.
SysML, UML, AADL, architectural analysis definition language, I think it is. I always forget the D. So it's in the book. I can look it up.
If you look at UML and SysML, So UML was more like what I always saw UML as a tool for, and my concept of it is definitely limited. Was always to model more of the data side of things, of the relationships between not elements, but those entities that
Hmm.
our code is going to relate to. While SysML was definitely more of a, hey, this is actually what I'm writing. These are the systems, and I always had this sort of childish approach that if you're going to put so much time and money into writing these things just to model your system, doesn't it just make sense to actually write your system and use that as a model? So make the system be the model, right?
Well, so that's an interesting thing, and I'm not the expert in here. I'm sure there's others on who are on in listening in who may have some other opinions here. I think we only really can do questions, but I'm sure there's more to be said here. But part of the benefit of UML and SysML is code generation. So in theory, you should be able to create models that then you generate your objects, right? So you can generate parts of your system from the models. And if you do, and so if you go in that direction, right, then in theory you're produced, as long as your model generator or your model to code generators are correct, then you define the model and you get the properties as the model becomes the system. Now, I think what you're really driving towards is using the system and instrumenting it to build the model.
To express itself as a model. But now that you touched into that automatic code writing, I'm asking myself, isn't that where we should go and introduce threat modeling next? So if you're already modeling the entities and you're going to extract code from there, then let's do the threat modeling in there so that the code that comes out of it is already threat modeled.
Yeah, yes, that would be a good idea.
Wait,
And
let
I'm
me
pretty
write
sure others are
it.
doing that.
Let me take some
uh,
notes.
I'm sure there are folks who are already looking at that. I'm pretty sure there actually is a tool for that
Huh.
already. I don't recall what the name is, but
And if
that's
not, you heard it here first. Oh.
but that would be an awesome idea, because then you'd be guaranteed. You sort of you can use the model to do the analysis before you actually write the code, before you build
Yep.
the system, and then use the system with some assurance that you've met the security properties. I see that we do have a question in the chat. What are some of common types of threat scenarios for modern systems? Oh my, how much time do we have?
Woo!
We can
I'm
go
gonna
for,
let.
yeah,
I'm
another
gonna.
30 minutes. Yeah, another
Oh
30
yeah.
minutes.
Oh, no, I was being facetious. Isra, do you want to cover, since you've been involved? So a little bit of background about the both of us. As Isra
Yeah.
mentioned, we both sort of started to we worked together at EMC, and EMC, of course, before it was acquired by Dell, was a storage company primarily. They did network systems, and my expertise is in physical systems, right? So I work on, like, I go out of my way to find companies that have products, physical things. I probably shouldn't do that here on LinkedIn. That will just cut out all the people who don't have products there. But I work on physical systems. That's really my forte, and ecosystems that support it. I'm knee deep in manufacturing systems and things like that. So, and that's the stuff that I enjoy. I know, you've had experience now with things, companies that build products, but those products are really, are more so cloud services and business applications and things like that, and are more modern. Not to say that haven't had some experience with CI/CD environments and DevOps and Kubernetes and things like that, but you've had more. I think you've had more direct experience with that. Some of your more recent gigs. What do you think are the common threat scenarios for modern systems, right? And we're talking,
Oh my goodness.
those types of things.
So, couple of a lot of years ago, the IEEE came out with IEEE Center for Secure Design came out with its inaugural paper, which was the top 10 or top 25. I don't remember now. Most popular design flaws. So that's a good place to start. That's a good list. And Safecode, I believe, also has something along those lines. But if I had to look at the top three nowadays and why they happen, I think that the why they happen is easier. Okay, the top three, I would say it would be issues with IAM, issues with authentication and authorization, and issues with deployment, especially in the cloud. And the reason why I think that those keep happening are that systems have become, on one side, commoditized. We are using, all of us are using the same infrastructure, the same background, the same back of everything. But at the same time, those things have become more and more complex. And we are not making the correct connection between something that's been commoditized and something that remains complex. We think that just because it's popular and there is a man page out there, we understand everything there is to understand about it, and we just do the thing that's said in the man page and good things happen. And we keep forgetting that these things interact with each other sometimes in ways that we have not forethought. When would be a good time to forethink those things? At threat modeling time. Hey, that's what we're good for. But since we are not all of us threat modeling that thing, then we end up with strange interactions between S3 buckets, permissions, and signed URLs, and time of the day and position of the moon, where our data ends up being out there somehow. Because we forgot this detail, we forgot that thing, how it connects, and we forgot the other one, how it goes out of style. So I would say that, again, and this is my personal pitch, the way to look at these things is go back to basics, go back to fundamentals. Stop looking at the brightest, shiniest, last sexiest security thing that got discovered yesterday morning, and look at the basics. Look at authorization, look at authentication, look at validation, look at all that good stuff that we keep forgetting, right? And yeah, I hope that
Yeah, I
question.
think, yeah, I completely agree with Izar that, many times when you try to chase the latest 0-day bugs, but if you have, list control or the authentication part, where you totally forget, how cumbersome your authentication has now become, that your employees and customers are now taking shortcuts and, they just hate it to be and help you with compliance. And second, I think other basic part that just either connected us with that, hey, why not you have the right access and right time, so some sort of automation you need there, right? If someone is stopped working on a given project, or somebody is moved out from one project to another within the same company even, then that automation should kick in and it should automatically terminate the person's access to a given application or a dashboard that he had access to. So I think that's the most of the time, people just forget about, and they chase after the latest vulnerabilities, latest patches Microsoft or your vendor brings in, and you try to more do modeling on that. You totally forget to maintain what you built successfully.
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely.
So I'll just pitch something. Izar mentioned the IEEE Center for Secure Design and top end threats. Uh, I'm a big fan of. We both are, I think, big fan of community resources, and so I'll just add that we commonly look at threats that may come from things like the MITRE framework around CAPAC, common attack patterns, for instance. Um, and I'll just pitch that because products are near and dear to my heart, and physical products, therefore you have hardware security. MITRE has taken a lot of effort to build out their common weakness enumeration and their CAPEC taxonomy around hardware threats, and that's another valuable resource for folks. Not necessarily always in modern systems, because we do have a lot of legacy things. But if you look at IoT devices,
Yes,
where you're
that's what
looking
it's
at
going to. Yes,
ICS
IoT
or
is the biggest
yep,
threat. OTF and IoT. If everyone has IoT device in your home now, so if you think that you can be smart enough by white fencing with given IP, but what if malware is using your IoT device and using the same your IP subrange and trying to launch an attack on your corporate systems? That is the biggest threat here. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, IoT devices are not exactly modern in all cases, right? So they may use decades old technology. So the threat landscape evolves, and so that's critically important for folks to keep in mind that those systems are at risk, and so understanding how to do threat modeling and look for those threat scenarios, um, it it definitely is an expansion of your of your thought process, right?
Mhm,
You're not just putting a light bulb into an environment. Now you're putting a network attached device into your environment.
mhm,
It's funny that every time that I think about IoT devices, and I have to confess, I am a huge user.
Same.
Uh, every time that I think about it, I go back to that line in the horror movie. The call is coming from inside the house. Like, we are bringing these threats in, and we are happy about it. And
Mhm.
just to
And we're
illustrate,
not going to stop.
no,
mhm.
just to illustrate. Hey
Yeah.
Google, turn off its lights green. Now think about the amount of things that happened
Mhm.
between me talking and this happening.
And how
The
many other
amount,
speakers you just set off in the listening?
my phone just asked, "Hey, are you talking to me?" And just a second, "Hey Google, office lights white." But think about the number of handshakes that happen right now in between my house, the Google ecosystem, the ecosystem that controls. Shut up. The ecosystem. Wait, she's trying to play something now.
Oh, let me put my speaker on mute here before this goes badly.
So you see the amount of handshakes that had to happen now between these different ecosystems just to turn this bulb green, and he totally agrees with me. It's not staggering, but it's something that who was it that said that? Arthur C. Clarke, that anything that looks modern is close to magic. I mean, we relate to this as now. Yeah, it's some magic. I say what I want and it happens, right? But
Yeah.
the amount of interactions that have to happen for this to go on, it's a big deal. I
It
mean,
is.
we are changing credentials, we are changing permissions, we are exchanging data.
Mhm.
This light knows where it is, and who owns the infrastructure to talk to this light know where it is. So privacy, access, rights, it's staggering the amount of data and the amount of stuff that has to happen in series for this simple light bulb to change color. But we take it as granted, right? We say, hey, it's fine. At the same time, we don't consider I have this moderately smart device in my office. I am constantly discussing security issues. This thing could have a microphone and I have no idea,
You're
It
right.
does, and it does.
Yeah, and
right?
you know what? The Google and I think it was the Alexa device, right? Alexa, they constantly, send your voice clippings for further analysis. Like, so they have this thing
Oops.
that
It,
if you
it
want, you
just
can,
it just
yeah,
decided Isar was a threat.
yeah. Maybe he still just set up command and that he'd oblige. Yeah. So I was going to say that many times this NLP is natural language processing, right? That's what it does, and we think that it's doing that, but it is also constantly listening to what you say, and both have their valid reason. Google and the Alexa team, hey, we are trying to perfect our NLP algorithm, right? So
Yeah, and luckily, those companies, because I don't want to set off my own speakers while I'm talking about this,
mhm,
those companies have done threat analysis,
mhm,
looking for especially privacy. So So here's the other, I guess, one really important topic. Important topic we don't talk about, sort of, and it goes to the sort of what is threat modeling and when do people do it and why do people do it, and they look at it as a compliance thing. But by and large, unless you're in a regulated environment, so you're doing automotive or aerospace or functionally safe environments that or critical infrastructure or whatever, where you have some sort of mandate, you may not see threat modeling done except for to meet internal security practices,
Mm-hmm.
whereas privacy has legal ramifications if you don't do it.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so security is not always seen that way, and that's a challenge, right? And so those companies, that build these devices put in physical, ideally, and for the best reasons, they put in physical switches to turn off microphones to address the privacy concern, because they know they get legal implications if they don't. Ideally, they take security in the same vein. And I have, in some of my experiences, I do see that certain many of these companies do look at security of the devices and the components that they use, and want to make that important, because there's safety concerns also if a device blows up. Obviously you don't want the, again, legal ramifications. And so, but security isn't necessarily on the same playing field there. And that's a challenge, and that's where you get this sort of I think we get this apathy sometimes around doing threat modeling. And we shouldn't, as developers, as architects, we should be doing threat modeling because we want to build the best system we possibly can and meet all of our requirements.
Yeah, I
And
think
that's I think a very key part that we need to keep in mind.
Yes, I think that's very well said, Matthew, because I think going forward, people are slowly getting pulled into the, why you should do threat modeling, looking into the all supply chain attacks that recently happened, right? Like the SolarWinds, or even the API, the innocent API your developers are using in the code, right? Everyone has to now look from the angle of it's not only providing a desired functionality, but is it doing something extra that not supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have any separate listeners, or does it have anything else it's doing, not only just communicating, throwing you out the result as a part of the parameter, but does it also opening any port or anything else it's doing in the pipeline? So that's, I think, the part of the modeling is always, I think, now necessary going forward.
It is, and I mean it. The modeling bears that out. But actually, I'm going to toss this back to Izar for this question, because again, he's got a broader experience, I think, in terms of organizations than I do. In building something or having a feature, you're going to have a requirement, and that requirement is usually going to be, okay, I need a communication channel, I need an API, I need a way to make a request and get result back. The side effects that you may model for and analyze for during threat modeling are often due to developer mistakes, right? They and not I'm not trying to throw developers in the bus, but we're programmers, we write things and we make mistakes, and sometimes we have bad designs and we make mistakes. And those mistakes are encoded by CWE, common weakness enumeration. Those are the mistakes that we make that result in security problems. But looking at requirements as the input into this process when you're building something, do you often see requirements to avoid side effects? So having having an API that does something and having a requirement that says it doesn't do anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest,
So
challenge.
before we go there, just to add to what you said before and plug something in, privacy. Matt really alluded to the fact that threat modeling is a great place to go and look at the new and upcoming threats that involve privacy.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some good frameworks out there. One that I would like to call out is Linden, which is based on Stride, but to the privacy side, and an associated tool that comes with it called Sparta. They both come from the University of. Oh my God, I'll never say that right, so I won't even try. But they're great tools, and it's a great approach. in my personal experience, what I've seen with privacy is something very interesting, that people are trying to threat model for privacy, and they are answering questions in terms of how do we protect this data and how do we erase this data correctly and so on and so forth. But many times they forego what I think is the first and most important question in privacy. Do we need this data? Right? So sometimes we collect data just in case or for something in the future, and we don't ask ourselves, do we really have to have this data and the responsibility that comes with having it? So with that said, back to side effects, which is a great question, as usually Matt has them. And let's just put it like this. I think that it relates back to the complexity point that I raised forward. I think it's hard enough for developers to do the things that APIs are intended to do before they even start thinking about second and third order effects. And those exist, right? And oh my God, they exist. I mean, those are the cracks through which these very, very, very exceedingly smart people who keep attacking our systems slide through. I mean, I am a big opponent, I would say. Okay, I dislike the view that in order to threat model something, you have to think like an attacker. I don't think that it's a condition. I think that it's actually something that we got used to hear, and if we just think a bit about it, we see that it's counterproductive. But the fact is that the attackers that we have out there, as I said, they are exceedingly smart, and they will catch us when they can. So it would be great to have a bit more interaction with these attackers, or as they are also called, no, not also called, or other people that we have out there extremely smart who are ethical attackers, or as we call them, pen testers, or people who participate in bug bounties. That those people, I think, are a source of what could possibly go wrong that we haven't tapped yet in the threat modeling community. And perhaps it is a community that we should reach out to and start listening to what they have to say, because they are a repository of things that are not in KPAC and that attack did not see coming, that we may learn from. So those are that would be the source of see, there's a second order thing happening here that I would like you to think about in the next time that developers are not exploring. But until we get there, I will keep pushing forward for developers to learn fundamentals, to have security training, to do their own threat model. I firmly believe and stand behind the threat model of every story. And yeah, Matt, no, they don't take into account side effects.
And I'm going to redirect that question also, just to touch upon the modeling part that we talked about earlier, because we do talk about it, and we've talked about it in the book, we've talked about it in presentations. Traditional threat modeling uses data flow diagrams. Data flow diagrams traditionally ignore architectural information, which is critically important, but these side effects, these second order, third order actions, when you call an API, the ripple effect, the fan out through the environment, what happens on all those interactions, data flow diagrams don't necessarily tell you that. So you also need to look at, you also really should be looking at sequence diagrams or process flows
Definitely.
right? Because that it's those things tied to the architecture or tied to the data, the objects and the interactions between them and how they pass data around. Sort of effectively a state machine, but on this grand scale of many things can have a state, taking a snapshot of the system at each step. If you want to go to this level of analysis, because that will give you the information that you really need to be able to point out, okay, well, data comes in this API and it runs through my system, and then at some point that system throws it on the floor because there's a fault. And you won't know that just by looking at a data flow, because the data flow is a happy path, right? Oh, data flows ABC, done. As opposed to data flows ABC, but by the time it gets to B, C's already dropped off the environment because something happened at A, and you don't know that. And the sequence diagram tells you that. So synthesizing different pieces of information to be more effective in your analysis is critically important.
Yep. That for me translates to a new challenger has entered the arena. So you're touching A, B, C, D, and then E scrolls in and says, "Hey, I want that data too."
Hmm.
Okay, we have a question here on the chat, I believe,
We do.
that although it's not really threat modeling
Oh,
directly.
there is one.
related-
Sorry, there was one previously. When
Oh,
would you say a threat model has been completed successfully? Oh my.
never.
That's the short answer. The long answer is when you've derived the value that you want out of it.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it is so. Not unfortunately, you should always consider it a living document, right? Unless you're threat modeling a system that exists and has already gone end of life and is never being modified again, so you're just doing documentation on it for whatever reason, it's going to change. And by the way, it will change, either the system changes or the technology and the security ecosystem changes, even if the system that you're modeling doesn't. And that's really important, right? So if you build a system today, 10 years from now, your assumptions may have changed or the technologies have changed, right? If you model a system 10 years ago, you'd be saying, oh, TLS 1.0, we're fine, or SSL 3.0. And then today you'll look at it and go, wait, we have a serious problem there. The,
Or,
mo-
or,
the system didn't change at all, but the landscape did.
or Brooke Schoenfeld, I think, he likes to use the example of Spectre. You may have
Mhm.
like this thing that has been running for 20 years and it's secure, it's threat modeled, it's everything. And then you go and you look at it and you notice, oh, this thing has been radiating my keys for the past 5 years.
Yeah,
Yay!
yes.
So yeah, even a legacy system or
Mhm.
things that are like encased in carbo, whatever it's called again, I forget. Um, it's not that they evolve, but the world around them changes.
That's
So
right.
we
You're
have to
right.
be aware of this kind of thing too.
Yeah,
So
so it's hard to complete a threat model. You'll have a a point in time completion, but don't
exactly,
consider it an end of the activity.
yeah. A, a,
Yeah.
a good threat model is not a movie; it's a series of snapshots.
Mhm.
But you need to have those snapshots. They need to turn into a movie. They need to become from a discrete thing. They have to become a continuous move towards the life of the system
I think
until
it's
it's
like
plugged off.
a learning model. Yeah, you keep learning and you're applying the new learning on the model, and that's how you just improvise all the
Yeah,
time. Yeah, we had one customer who had a typical scenario where what you just mentioned about, hey, the system was leaking the keys or something else, right? So what happened with this system? The developer, their module that he wrote, whenever he had some logic error or something, he was dumping all the current parameter values into the application log. So where he also ended up dumping sensitive data, and that sensitive the data, the log was kind of freely accessible because it is in kind of error log, application log, and it was accessible for all the tools that were there, used for application monitoring, sim monitoring, right? So just imagine the access to that sensitive data, not only the intended application users had, not only the application admins had, but everybody else was also, using that log just to catch any errors or just to watch the system. So unintended behavior was that module that it was exposing a lot more than it should have.
yeah.
Izar has a thought on this. I have a thought on this, but
No,
we have a minute left. So
actually,
Don't worry, you can go. It can go. Yeah, we can.
actually, before we go there, one thing that occurred to me now: what you just heard about this lifetime of threat model and everything is the view of a threat modeler practitioner. Now, I have to take off that hat and put on the hat of the developer and the developer manager, and tell you that at some point, the return of investment on the threat model activity during the lifetime of a system is going to go down, right? So at some point, you're going to realize that the attackers that you are taking into account, the data that you're protecting, the systems that you are protecting, the the methodologies used to attack, they all will form, they'll collapse into a reality that you say, okay, it's not worth more for me to keep threat modeling the same. I already defended it as much as I can. And that's when we get to this last question that we have here of the regular patch. Is it a good practice or no? And just because of the time that we have, because this could be a webinar by itself, and it often is, I'll say Regular is a very strange way of approaching it, okay? Because regular says at a certain cadence, I'm going to do it. You can't regulate things like that. You can't say every Thursday, like some companies do, I'm going to put out a patch and everybody has to patch everything. You have to balance the risk for the
Yes.
patch and against the patch. You have to put that into your threat model. Say, hey, if I don't patch this thing, is this thing going to be exploited by the people that I realize as my potential attackers? How hard it's going to be for them to do that? So it's not regular. It's something that you do with a lot of thought behind. And thankfully, I have met IT people who don't know a word about threat modeling, but who can do this back and forth in their heads about should I patch this thing right now amazingly. And sometimes I just sit in awe of those people who can balance so many different factors of usability and down service and this and that and the other one, and say that patch needs to go now.
They make a risk decision in their head
Yes, yes. That's what I'm gonna
based
say.
on
That
experience, and
Yeah.
then they take action.
yeah, you could always read that fine print, the release notes that patch or that new version has came with. If it's doing something, trying to patch something, improve something that doesn't clearly affect your organization or your deployment, then better wait and evaluate more rather than just blindly going for. So I think that's the great thing to do.
All right, I guess we're out of time. I think we've answered all the questions, hopefully.
Yes,
And
yes.
I guess in closing, I'll just say, I think this was fun. Well, this certainly was fun, and I think
All right.
we talked we touched upon a good number of topics. Actually, I thought we were going to go in some other directions, but this is the nature of these sort of things. So, really had a fun experience, and thank you for inviting us both back this year to be part of this wonderful conference and or I guess series of events during Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it was really, very fascinating and learning session. This was. It was like, really interactive, and it did touch upon almost like say all the important aspects of what you go through in real life in threat modeling, and what is the perspective from developer's head, like the way as I said, right? You have to think from the other side. What when you say something to developer or the architect, you have to be, take into account the views of everyone, and make your company's system secure, the environment secure, rather than just trying to follow the book. So I think this was a very great and interactive session, and I think the audience would love it. And I would say that in future we may have something to touch upon as well, like as a small and medium business, what would be the guidance for them, because for them they just buying the stuff, SaaS based solutions they use, they mostly move on cloud. So I think we can sometime have a separate session and touch upon those aspects of the
There's
cyber.
lots of places we can go.
And I am going to leave the audience with a challenge.
Mhm.
Okay, just to go back to what Matt opened the session with, and threat modeling, what is it good for? I would like you people to imagine that you have a perfect threat model, best thing ever. You got
Whatever
the
that
system
means.
modeled, right? Whatever that means. You got system modeled, you got the threats identified, you got the mitigations identified, you got even your risk priority right. Now I want you to zoom out, look at your SDLC, at the other activities that you have in the SDLC, and consider how much that threat model is going to help on the other activities. How is it going to help you in testing? How is it going to help you in the next phase of design? And try to understand, as we did, that a threat model, rather than one activity in the SDLC, is an awesome hanger to put all the other activities under and extract some value from that specific activity that is the threat model. So while rather one activity of the SDLC, the product that comes out of it can help much more all the other activities.
Yes, really, really
Absolutely.
good. So thanks again both to Matthew and Izar to be, you've been very gracious with your time, and your energy was amazing this morning.
It's the monster.
It's
We should be
it's
sponsored
it's
by
ear- it's
Monster.
early, it's early morning. Haven't even had breakfast yet. Come on, we just.
No, wait, that's not breakfast. I guess that by now, Matt and we should be sponsored by Monster, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, we're not an esports team. As soon as they make threat modeling in esports, we're there.
Don't
Hey,
worry.
have you seen that Excel now is an esport?
All right,
If you
with
go
that,
into
we should probably end it before it gets really.
if you go into ESPN2, they have competitive Excel in there.
No.
Whatever happens, we deserve it.
Look, guys, yeah, it was really, wonderful chat and panel we had today. So I would like to thanks the audience for joining and listening into the wonderful topic. And let's have that, hanger in our organization where we can have the different aspects of our SDLC process, as I mentioned, and come back with what we find.
We'll come back next year. We'll talk about that specifically.
Sure,
That's
sure.
a challenge. That's a challenge. We'll have some time for folks to think about that.
Sure.
We'll see you next year with that as a
Yeah, I
topic.
think I have an idea also. We can also have some time like an in-person event as well, invite the executives, and we can have breakfast and lunch so that you don't have to worry about right.
Okay. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you very much. Take care.